Success that arrives without strategy is a mirage. It flatters the eye, it intoxicates the mind, but beneath its brilliance lies fragility. What is gained by chance, by impulse, by fortune's fleeting favor is already doomed to dissolve. The ruler who believes victory itself is sufficient, who basks in applause without preparing for betrayal, who mistakes admiration for loyalty, has already laid the foundation for his downfall. Power without design is a fortress without walls. It may seem impenetrable to those outside, but its collapse begins from within. The man who governs without foresight becomes a servant of events. He reacts rather than commands. He obeys the tides rather than steering them, and when the storm arrives, as it always does, his authority disintegrates with the same swiftness with which it was raised. True power is not the applause of the moment, but the architecture of survival. It is the hidden scaffolding of alliances, the silent discipline of fear, the careful cultivation of necessity. Appearances are the stage, but strategy is the script. Without it, even the most dazzling actor stumbles, exposed before his audience. Every victory that lacks strategy contains the seed of future defeat. The general who wins a battle by luck alone will soon face an enemy who learns, adapts, and returns sharper. The prince who inherits peace without preparing for war leaves his state vulnerable to the ambition of others. The leader who thrives on charm without building instruments of control will one day find his followers charmed by another. The world does not honor success, it tests it. It probes for weakness, it searches for cracks. A ruler without strategy invites predators, and the same hands that once raised him in triumph will abandon him without hesitation, for men are loyal only when necessity compels them. Strategy is not an ornament. It is the blood of command. It transforms chance into permanence, applause into fear, admiration into obedience. It is the difference between a reign that endures and a spectacle that collapses. To govern without it is to mistake the mask for the face, the echo for the voice, the shadow for the substance. Remember, success without strategy is failure in disguise. Fortune may raise you, but only strategy keeps you standing when fortune turns her face away. Success gained without strategy is an illusion that seduces the careless into believing they are invincible. Yet power that rests upon fortune alone is nothing but a throne built on shifting sand. The one who rules by accident may taste glory for a moment, but beneath the applause there is already silence preparing to consume him. To rise is easy when luck carries the weight, but to endure requires foresight, calculation, and the cold discipline to mold men and events into instruments of survival. Those who mistake the smile of fortune for permanence are already walking toward their ruin, blind to the fact that every crown rests upon daggers concealed beneath velvet. A ruler without strategy is like a commander marching without maps, advancing with enthusiasm but ignorant of terrain. He may stumble upon victory, but each step draws him closer to an ambush he cannot escape. The applause of the crowd blinds him more than the hostility of his enemies, for adoration is deceptive. It feels eternal, yet it changes with the wind. Those who worship today may betray tomorrow if no bonds of necessity restrain them. Fear endures longer than affection because affection is soft, but fear engraves itself into the marrow of men. Power is never preserved by chance. It is preserved by architecture, the patient building of alliances, the careful use of rewards and punishments, the balance between cruelty and mercy, the mask of virtue worn over the machinery of necessity. Without this architecture, a leader becomes a spectacle, admired, envied, briefly imitated, and then discarded. Fortune tests him not once but endlessly, and each test strips away the fragile ornaments of luck until only naked weakness remains. Those who govern without strategy govern for others, for it is their enemies, their allies, and their rivals who truly dictate the course of events. The state is not held together by hopes or speeches, but by the will to endure storms. To be unprepared for betrayal is to invite it. To be blind to ambition is to fall victim to it. To ignore the envy of rivals is to dig one's own grave. Strategy transforms enemies into pawns, allies into instruments, uncertainty into advantage. It does not promise peace, for peace is always temporary. It promises survival, which is the only true victory. A ruler who survives long enough shapes the future. One who does not is remembered only as a cautionary tale whispered by those who come after. Success without strategy breeds arrogance, and arrogance blinds rulers to the dangers coiling around them. They mistake submission for loyalty, silence for approval, laughter for admiration. Yet men obey not because they love, but because they fear consequences or see benefit. The moment benefit fades, the moment fear weakens, the moment necessity disappears, obedience dissolves like mist. The ruler who relied only on his charm or fortune is then left exposed, for he has built no scaffolding of necessity to hold men in place when admiration withers. The true ruler understands that appearances must be cultivated, but substance must be secured. Appearances deceive enemies and soothe the people, but substance ensures survival when the mask cracks. The mask is for the stage, the sword is for the shadows. To wield one without the other is to invite collapse. Thus, the wise prince disguises cruelty with mercy, ambition with humility, necessity with choice. He lets men believe they are free while binding them tighter with invisible chains. He rewards enough to inspire hope, punishes enough to command fear, and plans enough to withstand fortune's betrayal. Every empire, every state, every throne eventually faces the question of endurance. Luck may raise a man quickly, but only strategy allows him to resist time, betrayal, and the inevitable decay of illusions. The leader without foresight is already dead, though his people may not yet know it. He is a walking shadow, animated by fortune's hand but hollow within, waiting for the moment when events strip away the mask and reveal the emptiness of his reign. Survival belongs to those who see not only what is, but what will be, and who act not only for today, but for the storms of tomorrow. The illusion of permanence is the sweetest poison of power, for it convinces the ruler that his position is secure, that the applause of the people is eternal, that the loyalty of his allies is unshakable. But permanence does not exist in politics. It must be manufactured through vigilance, through design, through an unrelenting awareness that every hand stretched in friendship may one day wield a blade. To govern without such awareness is to hand destiny over to others, to live as a hostage of events rather than their master. Strategy is the iron thread that binds fortune to will, turning chance into structure and chaos into order. Without it, victory is nothing but the first step toward defeat. To believe that success alone guarantees security is to misunderstand the nature of men. They do not love leaders out of gratitude, they tolerate them out of necessity. Gratitude fades, but necessity endures. When necessity is absent, when men no longer fear punishment or hope for reward, their allegiance dissolves and their loyalty becomes available to the highest bidder or the boldest rival. It is not betrayal that destroys rulers. It is their failure to anticipate betrayal, their foolish confidence that men are faithful beyond self-interest. He who rules must assume betrayal as inevitable and design his power so that it cannot be undone by treachery alone. The art of survival is the art of foresight. Just as a general fortifies his camp before the enemy appears, so too must a ruler fortify his state before threats emerge. The weak build defenses when danger is visible. The wise build them long before danger is named. To rule without strategy is to be caught unprepared, scrambling in panic while rivals close in with measured steps. The fall of a leader is never sudden to those who watch closely. It is the slow unraveling of one who mistook luck for strength, who mistook applause for stability, who mistook the mask of virtue for the mechanics of control. Power without strategy is an inheritance squandered. It is a field left untended, yielding fruit for one season before turning barren. Fortune may grant the crown, but only strategy can preserve it. The man who rises without effort believes the crown is his by right. The man who builds with calculation knows the crown survives only through vigilance. The first is surprised when the throne slips away. The second expects the assault and prepares to endure it. It is not the ease of ascent that matters, but the hardness of survival, and only those who understand this endure the shifting tides of politics. A throne is not a seat, but a battlefield. It is not given once and held forever. It is contested each day, each hour, by enemies both within and without. To believe otherwise is to sleep while assassins sharpen their knives. The applause of the people may lull the ruler into complacency, yet the very crowd that shouts his name today will trample him tomorrow if he fails to hold them by stronger means. Applause is a flame. It burns brightly but quickly fades. Fear and necessity are stone. They endure. The wise ruler builds his reign on stone, not on flame, for when the wind of fortune blows, only stone remains unmoved. To command without foresight is to rule in blindness. The blind ruler stumbles even when the road is clear, and when the storm arrives, he is swept away without resistance. The seeing ruler understands that power is not a prize, but a burden, not a treasure, but a weapon, not a gift, but a curse that must be carried with discipline. Those who forget this truth are consumed by the very authority they believed was theirs to enjoy. Power devours the careless, but serves the calculating. Strategy is the difference between devourer and devoured, between ruler and victim, between survival and oblivion. The ruler who mistakes fortune for loyalty forgets that men bend not to gratitude but to fear, not to admiration but to advantage. They will adorn him with praise when it costs them nothing, but the moment sacrifice is required, they will retreat into silence, waiting to see where the balance of power tilts. Success achieved without strategy leaves him naked before this truth, for he has built no chains of necessity to bind them when their hearts wander. He becomes like a commander surrounded by soldiers who admire his courage but desert him at the first clash of steel, because admiration cannot hold a line against terror. Every throne is a theater, and every ruler an actor upon its stage. Fortune may cast a man into the leading role, but without the discipline of strategy, he forgets that audiences grow restless, that rivals wait in the wings, that scripts must be rewritten as the world changes around him. The actor who confuses applause for permanence soon discovers that the same crowd that lifted him in triumph will demand his removal when novelty fades. Power endures only when the script is controlled, when appearances are carefully directed, when necessity is hidden behind spectacle. Without this craft, success is a play without rehearsal, a performance doomed to collapse under its own improvisation. To govern without foresight is to fight wars after the enemy has already entered the gates. Strategy is not merely preparation, it is anticipation. It is the ability to see betrayal before it is spoken, to recognize ambition in a gesture, to hear revolt in whispers. The careless ruler waits for evidence. The strategic ruler acts before evidence hardens into certainty. Delay is the ally of the enemy. Speed, deception, and foresight are the weapons of survival. Success without these is an ornament, admired but useless when the swords are drawn. The greatest danger of unearned success is arrogance, the intoxicating belief that because one has risen, one cannot fall. Arrogance blinds the ruler to his weaknesses, deafens him to warnings, and numbs him to the necessity of discipline. He becomes intoxicated with his own myth, imagining that his fate is secured by destiny rather than maintained by vigilance. But destiny is only another word for strategy misunderstood. Those who rely on destiny are devoured by those who understand necessity. History remembers not the dreamers of permanence, but the architects of endurance. Power is not a possession but a relationship, and relationships shift with circumstance. To hold power is to hold men in orbit, and they remain only as long as gravity binds them. Strategy is that gravity, the network of fear, benefit, and necessity that prevents defection. Without it, the orbit collapses, and the ruler stands alone beneath an empty sky, abandoned by those who once seemed eternal companions. Success without strategy is a sun without gravity, brilliant for a moment, but destined to scatter into fragments the moment pressure mounts. The measure of a ruler is not the ease with which he rises, but the resilience with which he withstands fortune's betrayals. For fortune is not a faithful ally. She is a tempest. She raises ships only to smash them upon rocks. She grants peace only to prepare for war. She lifts rulers only to test the strength of their design. Those who mistake her favor for permanence are already condemned. Those who use her favor as material for strategy endure even when her winds turn against them. To survive, one must not worship fortune but bind her, not trust her but exploit her, not thank her but prepare for her abandonment. The weight of rule is measured not in the sweetness of triumph, but in the endurance of storms. Any man can wear the crown when the air is calm and the seas are still, but the true sovereign reveals himself only when the sky darkens, when allies grow hesitant, when enemies gather like vultures circling over the promise of decay. It is then that the hollowness of unplanned success is exposed, for a reign built on fortune alone has no anchor, no keel, no ballast to resist the fury of the tide. The ruler who has mistaken applause for loyalty and chance for strength watches his authority dissolve like sand between his fingers, powerless to hold what was never truly his. To endure in power requires more than courage. It requires calculation cold enough to wound the heart, yet sharp enough to preserve the body of the state. Sentimentality in politics is a luxury that devours those who indulge in it. The ruler who believes that gratitude will protect him has already surrendered the ground of survival. Gratitude is a shadow visible only when the sun of prosperity shines, but vanishing instantly when clouds gather. Men do not die for gratitude, they die for necessity. The leader who binds his people to necessity commands them even when love fades, even when fortune withholds her smile. Every success that is not rooted in foresight becomes the architect of its own destruction. Victory won by accident intoxicates the victor, lulling him into a stupor of invincibility. He begins to think enemies will not dare strike, that allies will never betray, that time itself will not erode his authority. But time is the most relentless adversary of power, and it strips illusions without mercy. The strategist survives because he never mistakes victory for completion. He knows that every triumph is only the opening of a new contest, that every conquest breeds new envy, that every peace conceals the seeds of the next war. The art of ruling is not the art of enjoying success, but the art of converting success into permanence. This permanence does not come from trust, nor from honor, nor from the fickle affections of men. It comes from design. It comes from weaving fear into loyalty, from balancing cruelty with mercy, from rewarding in such a way that obedience is profitable and punishing in such a way that disobedience is unbearable. It comes from making oneself indispensable, so that even those who despise you cannot afford your absence. To achieve this is not luck. It is the patient labor of strategy. The ruler who fails to see politics as war conducted by other means is already conquered, for he believes peace is natural when in truth it is only an interlude between battles. He believes alliances are friendships when they are in fact weapons disguised in velvet. He believes that power is a prize when it is a responsibility that must be sharpened daily like a blade. Without strategy, he is disarmed. Without vigilance, he is surrounded. Without foresight, he is betrayed before he even perceives the treachery. And when the blow comes, it comes not as an accident but as the inevitable punishment of his negligence. In politics, survival is the only true victory. Fortune may grant glory, but only strategy ensures existence. A reign that dazzles for a season and collapses in betrayal is no reign at all, only a spectacle to be remembered in whispers. The wise ruler does not seek to shine brightest, but to burn longest. He does not waste himself chasing the affection of men, for he knows affection rots, corrodes, and shifts with the weather. Instead, he binds men by necessity, for necessity is unchanging. When the rains fall, when famine comes, when war rises, men cling not to those they love, but to those they cannot afford to lose. The ruler who ensures he is that figure endures when all others fade. The throne is never truly won. It is only rented from the shifting will of men and the unpredictable currents of fortune. Each day in power is a battle renewed, each alliance a calculation in balance, each silence in the court a whisper that could grow into a storm. To believe otherwise is to indulge in delusion, and delusion is the most fatal luxury of rulers. The man who imagines his place secure because he has triumphed once forgets that triumph is only the opening act of a drama whose conclusion is never written. He who governs without strategy governs only at the mercy of those who scheme with it. Strategy is not a single decision, not a speech, not a decree. It is a constant state of mind, a discipline that never sleeps. It is the ability to treat every gesture as a signal, every ally as a potential rival, every rival as a potential ally, every silence as a message, every promise as a weapon waiting to be used. The careless ruler drifts, interpreting appearances at face value. The calculating ruler reads beneath the surface, where true danger and true opportunity dwell. Survival belongs to the one who listens more to what is unspoken than to what is said, for betrayal declares itself long before the dagger strikes. Men respect strength when they must, but they abandon it when they can. Success without strategy creates the illusion of strength while leaving the substance hollow. It draws followers who come not for loyalty but for profit, and when profit fades, so does allegiance. The wise ruler ensures that his presence is the very condition of their survival, that to betray him is to wound themselves, that to remove him is to destroy the very structure that holds them. This is not achieved by chance, but by the deliberate weaving of fear, benefit, and necessity into a fabric that cannot easily be torn apart. Appearances are weapons, but they are only the surface of rule. A smiling prince may soothe the people, but it is the hidden hand that controls the machinery of loyalty. To govern by appearances alone is to rule as an actor, dependent on the fickle approval of the crowd. To govern by strategy is to write the script, to command the stage, to determine when applause erupts and when silence falls. The ruler who understands this does not fear the instability of affection, for he has fortified his reign with stronger materials invisible to the audience, yet decisive in the performance of power. The state is a body, and strategy is its skeleton. Without the bones of foresight and control, it collapses under its own weight, no matter how full its flesh may be. Victories, riches, and acclaim are the flesh. Discipline, planning, and necessity are the bones. The careless ruler feeds his state until it is fat and fragile. The wise ruler strengthens its bones so that it can carry any burden. When crisis comes, and it always comes, it is not the appearance of prosperity that saves a state, but the strength of its hidden structure. The fall of rulers has never been written by their enemies alone. More often, it is written by their own blindness, their own indulgence, their own arrogance. Fortune gives them victories they did not earn, and they mistake these gifts for proof of invulnerability. They fail to notice the envy growing around them, the resentment building beneath them, the decay spreading within them. They imagine themselves beloved until the day the people they trusted abandon them, until the allies they cherished betray them, until the walls they thought unassailable collapse at the first touch of pressure. Success without strategy is nothing more than a carefully timed execution where the condemned enjoys a feast before the blade falls. The ruler who wishes to endure must learn to think not as a dreamer, but as a predator. He must see the field of power as a landscape of prey and rivals, where every movement alters the balance, where hesitation feeds the enemy, where mercy unguarded becomes weakness. This does not mean cruelty without cause, nor tyranny without reason, but it does mean that sentiment must always bow before survival. The prince who loves peace above security will lose both. The prince who values loyalty above necessity will find himself betrayed. The prince who mistakes fortune for strategy will discover that his reign was never truly his to begin with. The greatest deceit of power is the belief that time itself can be trusted. Yet time corrodes all things, alliances fray, loyalty weakens, ambition multiplies, and the memory of fear grows faint. To rule without strategy is to be at the mercy of this corrosion, watching the foundations of authority erode while pretending the edifice stands secure. The ruler who ignores this truth does not fall by a single blow. He decays slowly until one day his enemies discover that he is hollow, and even the smallest strike is enough to shatter him. Success without strategy blinds a man to the reality that survival depends not on the magnitude of one victory, but on the continuity of many. One battle may bring glory, but glory fades in the face of hunger, in the face of rebellion, in the face of envy disguised as loyalty. The crowd that cheers today has already begun calculating its price for tomorrow, and those who kneel in submission are already dreaming of the day they can stand without consequence. Without strategy, the ruler is reduced to reacting, always one step behind the ambitions of others, always surprised by the inevitable. Power is never static. It shifts like the wind, like the sea, like the fickle passions of men. The wise ruler anchors himself not in their affections, but in the machinery of necessity. He designs systems where men obey not because they wish to, but because they cannot do otherwise. He ensures that betrayal is more dangerous than loyalty, that defection brings ruin while submission brings safety. He accepts that cruelty, when measured and necessary, preserves stability better than kindness misapplied. In this lies the true architecture of command, not in the illusions of virtue, but in the balance of fear and benefit. Every man who rises without strategy becomes a captive of appearances. He must constantly maintain the illusion that he is strong, beloved, invincible, yet the harder he clings to the illusion, the more fragile he becomes. The strategist, by contrast, does not fear the breaking of masks, for he has prepared for what lies beneath. He cultivates appearances, yes, but never mistakes them for reality. He understands that the mask is only a tool, and that when it cracks, the iron beneath must still inspire obedience. To rely solely on masks is to govern in costume. To govern with strategy is to rule both stage and audience alike. The fall of kingdoms is written in the arrogance of their rulers. Those who mistake fortune for design grow careless, their guard lowered, their enemies emboldened. They build monuments instead of armies, seek praise instead of security, drown themselves in comfort while their rivals sharpen their knives. By the time they realize their error, it is too late, for the collapse of a reign is rarely sudden to those who watch carefully. It is the slow unraveling of one who forgot that power is not a gift, but a struggle renewed each day. Strategy is the antidote to arrogance, the discipline that prevents the intoxication of success from turning into blindness. It whispers to the ruler that every friend may become an enemy, that every triumph may conceal its downfall, that every peace may be the prelude to war. It is not paranoia, but survival, for history belongs not to the complacent, but to the prepared. The ruler who governs with this awareness does not rely on the mercy of fortune, nor the affection of men, nor the illusion of permanence. He relies only on what can be designed, controlled, and enforced. The fragility of success without foresight is revealed in moments of crisis, when the glow of triumph fades and the true weight of leadership presses down. For in calm seas, even the weakest captain may seem competent. But when storms rise, it is strategy alone that steadies the ship. Fortune may raise a man to command, but fortune abandons him with equal speed, and when she turns her face away, he discovers too late that he has built no anchor, no ballast, no harbor to shield him from destruction. The applause of men cannot calm the waves, nor can their fleeting affection fill the sails. Only preparation, only calculation, only the cold architecture of necessity can prevent the vessel from splintering against the rocks. The ruler who governs without design becomes the captive of circumstance. He is led by events rather than leading them, reacting to threats only after they materialize, soothing unrest only after it festers into rebellion. Such a ruler is already defeated, though he still wears his crown. For true power lies not in responding to the inevitable, but in shaping what is to come, in bending uncertainty toward advantage, in ensuring that when the unexpected occurs, it unfolds within boundaries he himself has drawn. Those who neglect this discipline live at the mercy of their enemies, who wait patiently for the moment when negligence delivers opportunity into their hands. Men themselves are the most unstable foundation of rule. Their passions are volatile, their loyalties fragile, their gratitude short-lived. They admire when it costs them nothing, obey when compelled, betray when convenient. To rely on their affections without reinforcing them through necessity is to build a fortress on sand, strong in appearance yet crumbling beneath the first pressure. The ruler who binds them through fear and interest, however, creates pillars that endure even as emotions shift. He understands that men act from calculation more than from sentiment, and he ensures that their calculations always point toward obedience as the safest path. Success that lacks this understanding produces arrogance, and arrogance blinds the ruler to the slow gathering of threats. He begins to imagine himself immune to envy, invulnerable to betrayal, protected by the sheer magnitude of his triumph. Yet the higher he rises without foundation, the more violently he falls when the ground gives way. For every throne attracts enemies, and every crown breeds rivals, and to wear it without strategy is to invite those rivals to test its weight. History does not forgive the careless. It records their fall as lessons for those who follow. To endure, the prince must weave fear with hope, cruelty with mercy, deception with spectacle. He must cultivate appearances as one cultivates a mask, showing the people what comforts them while concealing the machinery that binds them. To reveal only strength without humanity provokes hatred. To reveal only kindness without strength invites defiance. The art lies in blending both, in appearing merciful while being feared, in appearing humble while commanding, in appearing vulnerable while remaining untouchable. This is not hypocrisy but necessity, for the state itself survives on appearances as much as on steel. The failure to govern through such balance ensures ruin. The ruler who leans only on affection will be abandoned. The one who leans only on terror will be overthrown. The one who leans only on fortune will be forgotten. But the one who uses all as tools, each in its proper measure, becomes unassailable, for he has built a system that cannot be undone by a single betrayal or a single shift of fortune. Strategy makes him necessary, and necessity is the strongest fortress a ruler can possess. Power that rests upon chance is already condemned, for chance is a river that cannot be commanded, and those who float upon it without building bridges or dams are swept away when its course shifts. A ruler who rises without strategy enjoys the illusion of command but not its substance, for his authority is tied not to his will but to the whims of fortune. He imagines himself sovereign, yet in truth he is only a guest in the house of power, tolerated for a season, discarded when necessity demands another host. What appears as triumph is merely the prelude to exile, and what looks like security is the mask of fragility. The wise ruler never forgets that the same men who kneel in submission also dream of liberation, and that the same allies who clasp his hand also calculate his downfall. To govern is to understand that loyalty without compulsion is an illusion, that friendship without benefit is a mask, that peace without preparation is a snare. To mistake any of these for permanence is to gamble one's throne upon the goodwill of men who have none. For men are faithful only to themselves, and the prince who does not bind them through necessity leaves his reign at the mercy of their shifting desires. Strategy is the only true inheritance of power. Fortune may grant lands, titles, armies, or wealth, but without the discipline to command them, they dissolve like snow beneath the sunday. The prince who possesses foresight converts each gift into permanence, building structures that outlast the hand that gave them. He shapes alliances so that they endure even when love cools. He disciplines armies so that they obey even when wages falter. He governs people so that they submit even when affection turns to resentment. To rule in this way is not to resist fortune but to enslave her, bending her gifts into chains that bind men to obedience long after her favor departs. The failure to prepare for betrayal is the most common sin of rulers and the most unforgivable. For betrayal is not an accident but a certainty, as inevitable as the rising of ambition in the hearts of men. To be surprised by it is to confess one's blindness, to admit that one has governed by hope rather than design. The wise ruler assumes betrayal even in silence, expects treachery even in friendship, and designs his reign so that no single act of defection can destroy him. To be betrayed and survive is proof of true power. To be betrayed and fall is proof that one never possessed it. The true art of statecraft is the conversion of weakness into strength, of uncertainty into advantage, of men's fears and desires into instruments of rule. This art is not taught by fortune but by necessity, learned not in moments of glory but in nights of solitude, when the ruler contemplates not how to enjoy power but how to preserve it. He learns to see ambition not as a threat to be crushed immediately, but as a tool to be directed, to channel the desires of others so that they serve his designs rather than their own. He learns to govern appearances, not by believing them, but by wielding them as weapons sharper than swords. He learns to make obedience seem voluntary, even when it is compelled, to make submission appear as choice, even when it is dictated. The one who fails in this art may glitter for a season, but the world devours him with the same hunger with which it once applauded him. For power without strategy is a banquet laid before wolves. The ruler may feast for a moment, but in the end he becomes the meal, and the memory of his reign is reduced not to admiration but to warning, his name spoken not with reverence but with pity, a lesson whispered to those who come after, that success without strategy is failure concealed in triumph's clothing, a mask that time tears away to reveal the skull beneath. The crown that rests on the head of one who has not built the foundation of strategy is already slipping, though he may not yet feel its weight shift. For power is never still. It is always contested, always tested, always under siege by the invisible ambitions of those who bow in public and scheme in private. A ruler who mistakes calm for security is like a soldier who lays down his arms in the middle of battle, seduced by a moment of silence into forgetting that the enemy is always near. To govern is to accept that danger never disappears. It only changes form, and that survival requires constant vigilance, even in the hours of apparent peace. Strategy is the art of seeing tomorrow in today, of hearing revolt in whispers, of recognizing betrayal in a glance, of detecting ambition in the smallest gestures of flattery. It is not paranoia, but discipline, not fear, but clarity. The ruler who lives without it walks blindfolded across a battlefield, trusting that luck will carry him safely through, while arrows fly unseen and swords sharpen in shadows. To rely on fortune in such a place is not bravery but folly, for fortune is no shield, and her favor is never permanent. Only design, only preparation, only the ruthless shaping of necessity can turn uncertainty into advantage. Success without such preparation is nothing but an ornament, admired for its brilliance but worthless in the contest of survival. It decorates the ruler, surrounds him with illusions of strength, lulls him into believing that he is untouchable. Yet ornaments crack under pressure, and when tested, they reveal no substance beneath their gleam. The prince who reigns by chance alone is like a golden statue, revered from afar, admired in ceremony, but hollow inside, unable to withstand the blow that inevitably comes. True power is not ornamental but structural, built with the steel of necessity, reinforced with the cement of fear, designed to endure not only celebration but assault. Men obey not because they are grateful, nor because they are loyal, nor because they are virtuous, but because they are compelled by circumstance. Gratitude vanishes when new opportunities arise. Loyalty evaporates when survival demands defection. Virtue dissolves when ambition ignites. To govern without strategy is to rely on these fragile illusions, as if building a fortress from paper and hoping the storm will not tear it apart. The strategist knows better. He knows that men serve so long as service benefits them, and so he ensures that benefit is inseparable from obedience, that rebellion costs more than submission, that betrayal brings destruction swifter than loyalty brings reward. The decay of unprepared rulers is never sudden to those who watch carefully. It begins with arrogance, with the refusal to adapt, with the dismissal of warnings, with the intoxication of flattery. It grows through negligence, as defenses weaken, as enemies gather, as the machinery of power rusts in silence. And it ends in catastrophe, when all the illusions collapse at once, when the ruler who believed himself beloved finds himself alone, when the throne that seemed eternal is overturned in a single night. What seemed like stability is revealed as fragility, and what seemed like triumph is unmasked as the beginning of failure. The lesson is inexorable. To hold power is not to enjoy it, but to defend it. To rule is not to bask in glory, but to endure in necessity. Fortune may grant a man a throne, but only strategy makes him worthy of it, and only vigilance keeps it from being stolen. The prince who forgets this truth does not simply risk defeat, he guarantees it. For in politics, as in war, the careless are not merely challenged, they are destroyed. The silence that follows unearned success is the most dangerous sound a ruler can hear, for in that silence lies the murmur of plotting, the stirrings of envy, the quiet calculation of those who seek to supplant him. Those who mistake applause for loyalty do not perceive the seeds of betrayal germinating in the hearts of men who smile in his presence. Strategy is the instrument that turns this silence into intelligence, that transforms, whispers into warnings, that converts the invisible machinations of others into opportunities for preemption and control. To govern without it is to wander in a hall of shadows, convinced of light while predators circle unseen. The ruler who survives, who thrives, who endures, understands that power is an economy of force as much as a theater of appearances. Every smile, every pledge, every gesture must be accounted for, measured against consequence, weighed for reliability. A single miscalculation can set in motion events that undo decades of preparation, and yet the unstrategic ruler treats human nature as constant, forgetting that men are vessels of desire and instruments of ambition, subject to change at the slightest provocation. To govern effectively, one must map these currents, anticipate their direction, and harness them to serve the aims of the state. Ambition is never satisfied. It grows, it multiplies, it spreads. The unprepared ruler who underestimates this is like a farmer who plants without fences, only to see his crops devoured by roaming herds. Every subordinate is a potential usurper, every ally a possible betrayer, every friend a concealed adversary. The wise ruler calculates each relationship with precision, aligning interests so that self-preservation binds loyalty, that fear tempers ambition, that reward reinforces obedience. Only through such meticulous orchestration does power become sustainable. Only through such exacting attention does authority cease to be precarious. Success without strategy is a mirage, dazzling to behold but lacking substance. It seduces the ruler into complacency, intoxicates him with the illusion of permanence, lulls him into the belief that fortune is a friend rather than a force to be reckoned with. Yet when the first crisis strikes, when rebellion arises, when betrayal surfaces, when allies turn opportunistic, the mirage evaporates, revealing the fragility beneath. Those who have built their reign upon instinct, charm, or luck alone find themselves naked, exposed to the full consequences of neglect, while the strategist, whose foresight anticipated each possibility, remains standing, unshaken, commanding the battlefield even before the fight has begun. To neglect strategy is to confuse action with effectiveness. One may make bold moves, win battles, announce victories, and yet accomplish nothing of enduring consequence. Without design, each act is isolated, each triumph fleeting, each victory temporary. The ruler who acts without vision leaves himself vulnerable to the very patterns he cannot see, to the unseen tides that will undo him. Strategy transforms action into leverage, converts effort into dominance, and ensures that each decision, each maneuver, each choice is part of a coherent architecture capable of withstanding both time and opposition. The ruler who understands this does not rest in victory, does not revel in adulation, does not trust the softness of comfort. He knows that power is a living thing, ever demanding, ever hungry, ever dangerous. He governs like a general who anticipates every battlefield, like an architect who designs every support, like a hunter who calculates the habits of prey. Every alliance is scrutinized, every opportunity dissected, every threat rehearsed and rehearsed again, for he knows that the ruler who trusts in anything outside his deliberate control is already on the path to ruin, and that only through unceasing calculation does authority become enduring rather than ephemeral. The illusion of success without strategy is the cruelest of deceptions, for it masks vulnerability beneath the glitter of triumph. The prince who basks in it believes himself secure, yet every unexamined assumption is a fracture in his foundation, every ignored threat a crack in his walls. Only the ruler who studies, anticipates, and designs can claim power as his own rather than as a gift of fortune. Only the strategist converts opportunity into dominion, loyalty into obedience, and fear into stability. Only the one who rules by necessity rather than hope can endure when the winds of chance rage and when men, ever restless, test the limits of his command. A ruler who disregards strategy confuses motion for progress, noise for influence, and the appearance of control for its reality. He reacts to events instead of shaping them, a puppet jerked by strings he does not see, leaving his fate in the hands of those clever enough to manipulate circumstance. Power is not inherited by the boldest gestures or the loudest proclamations. It is seized by the one who understands the architecture of events, who anticipates the desires of men, who calculates every outcome before it manifests. To act without such calculation is to invite disaster with open arms, to walk willingly into the trap that others have prepared. Fear is the most reliable instrument in the hands of the prudent ruler, yet it must be wielded with precision. Too little, and obedience falters. Too much, and loyalty fractures. Men can endure adversity, scarcity, and hardship, but they cannot endure unpredictability unchecked by the hand of authority. Strategy dictates the exact measure, the moment to strike, the method by which men are guided, coerced, or restrained. It is in the mastery of such forces that the ruler finds permanence. For those who cannot command fear inevitably surrender to chaos, and those who mistake goodwill for loyalty discover too late the fragility of their reign. The unstrategic ruler treats people as abstractions, moral codes as immutable, and virtue as a shield against betrayal. He imagines that honesty will protect him from deception, that generosity will ensure fidelity, that visibility will prevent conspiracy. These illusions are fatal. Men are governed not by principle but by interest, by desire, by fear, and by calculation. The wise ruler recognizes this truth and adapts, employing virtue and vice alike as tools, discarding them when convenient, using them when expedient, shaping appearances so that the masses see what they must see and not what the ruler feels. Strategy transforms morality into leverage, ethics into mechanism, and public perception into a weapon sharper than the blade of any adversary. Ambition is the constant shadow of authority, stalking every ruler who rests too comfortably upon his throne. Allies covet it, subordinates hunger for it, enemies scheme around it. To ignore ambition is to invite it to consume from within. To underestimate it is to hand the crown to those who desire it most. The strategic ruler anticipates the ambitions of others as he anticipates the movements of armies, guiding their impulses into channels that serve his objectives, containing potential threats with incentives, aligning self-interest with obedience, and punishing with precision those who exceed tolerable ambition. To fail in this is to court betrayal, and in politics, betrayal is rarely punished before it has irreversibly altered the balance of power. Success achieved without foresight is hollow, a brittle monument to chance that will collapse under pressure. It teaches the ruler to trust appearances, to underestimate danger, to ignore the currents beneath the calm. Strategy, by contrast, is the scaffold upon which true power is constructed. It accounts for desire, fear, weakness, and strength. It predicts the tides of fortune, It anticipates the fracture points of loyalty and the inevitability of envy. The ruler who embodies strategy sees not only the present, but the unfolding of time itself as a field to be managed, where every choice is a stone laid to support a structure capable of withstanding the storms of human nature. Control is not maintained through charisma alone, nor through wealth, nor through titles. It is maintained through design. The strategic ruler converts each advantage into permanence, each moment of opportunity into leverage, each act of influence into lasting authority. He does not trust in the goodwill of men, nor in the stability of circumstance, nor in the mercy of fortune. He builds systems, enforces discipline, and anticipates revolt before it is conceived. In doing so, he renders himself immovable not through affection nor fear alone, but through a network of cause and effect so precise that resistance becomes perilous and disobedience self-destructive. The machinery of rule is intricate, unrelenting, and unforgiving. Every failure to anticipate the impulses of men, every misjudgment of circumstance, every lapse in vigilance invites consequences that accumulate, metastasize, and ultimately overthrow the careless. The unstrategic ruler may enjoy fleeting moments of glory, yet each moment is a debt owed to chance, each triumph a reminder of fragility, each smile of his court a potential dagger in disguise. Only through strategy does a ruler convert these precarious moments into enduring authority, transforming transient fortune into the architecture of dominion, chaos into order, and uncertainty into control. And so, the final truth emerges, undeniable and cold. Power untempered by strategy is illusion, a shadow that vanishes when the sun of adversity rises. The ruler who relies on fortune alone drifts like a vessel without oars. At the mercy of winds he cannot command, and currents he cannot see. He mistakes applause for loyalty, smiles for allegiance, and calm for stability, only to discover that the fortress he believed impregnable was built on sand. Strategy is not a luxury, it is the marrow of survival. It transforms knowledge into leverage, fear into discipline, ambition into service, and foresight into permanence. The ruler who masters it sees beyond the immediacy of applause or rebellion, beyond the seduction of power's illusions, into the mechanics of influence and the inevitability of consequence. He knows that every human action contains both opportunity and threat, that every relationship is a potential instrument or a concealed blade, and that authority exists only where foresight precedes action. To rule without strategy is to gamble with existence itself, to decorate fragility with triumph, to crown oneself in emptiness. To rule with strategy is to sculpt time, to navigate ambition, to orchestrate loyalty, and to endure when fortune turns, as she inevitably does, against all who rely on her mercy. The wise ruler learns that success is not measured by moments of victory, but by the resilience of his dominion, by the obedience he commands not through charm but through design, and by the permanence he constructs in the minds and actions of men. Let this be the final reckoning. Power alone is nothing. Without strategy, it is failure in disguise. The throne may shine, the banners may wave, the court may cheer, but beneath it all lies the merciless truth. Only the deliberate, the calculating, the prepared will endure. The rest are monuments to chance, relics of vanity, stories of ruin waiting for the world to catch up with them. The crown is not won by the fortunate, it is secured by the wise.